That same day, my daughter-in-law posted photos of everyone on a Mediterranean cruise. I just smiled. When they came back, I handed her a DNA test that made her go pale. I'm glad to have you here. Follow my story until the end, and let me know where you're watching from. I spent 3 weeks planning that dinner. Not a birthday bash, nothing fancy. Just a quiet family gathering at home. 8 chairs around the mahogany table set with our good china. I steamed the napkins into fans, baked Elliot's favorite lemon cake from scratch, and even dusted off the old record player so it could play Sinatra like it used to. The invitation was simple: Sunday dinner at 6. Bring nothing but yourselves. I called each of them: my son Elliot, his wife Meadow, my sister Ruth and her husband, and of course the grandkids. They all said they'd be there. Meadow even texted me, "Can't wait. You deserve the best, Loretta." I read that message 3 times. At 5:30, the roast was resting, the candles were lit, and the dining room smelled of rosemary and anticipation. At 6:15, the doorbell still hadn't rung. I told myself they were running late. Traffic maybe. A soccer game ran long. People get busy. At 7 o'clock, I checked my phone again. No missed calls. No texts. Just the blinking cursor in the group chat, still frozen on Meadow's last message from 4 days ago. That's when I opened Facebook. There they were, Elliot, Meadow, the kids, even Ruth, posing on the deck of a luxury cruise ship. Living our best life on the Mediterranean. Grateful for this family time. Waterwave red heart. Meadow had written. The timestamp was 10 minutes ago. I stared at the screen, my hand suddenly still. Then I scrolled. More pictures. The kids building sandcastles, Ruth sipping something frosty with a cocktail umbrella, Meadow in oversized sunglasses kissing my son's cheek. Every single person I'd set a place for was there. All of them. And none of them had told me. I stood in the dining room, the flicker of the candles casting soft shadows over empty plates. The lemon cake sat untouched beneath its glass dome. The roast, now cold, waited in vain. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just turned off the music, one trembling hand reaching for the volume knob. I wrapped the cake in plastic, put the silverware back in the drawer, blew out each candle one by one. Meadow's smile haunted me. That satisfied little tilt to her lips, the way she stood front and center in the group photo. The caption felt like a slap: grateful for this family time. I wasn't part of that family anymore. Maybe I hadn't been for years. I wanted to believe it was a mistake. A scheduling error. A last-minute plan they forgot to tell me about. But the matching shirts, the coordinated hashtags, the professional quality photos, they'd planned this. And they'd planned to leave me out. It wasn't just that they'd missed my birthday. It was the silence. The deliberate exclusion. The smiling deceit. That night, I sat alone in my living room, still wearing the blue dress I'd picked because Elliot once said it made me look elegant. The pearls around my neck felt heavier than usual. Somewhere out at sea, my family was laughing, clinking glasses, toasting to togetherness. Back at home, I was a ghost haunting a dining room no one visited anymore. But ghosts have memories, and mine go back farther than Meadow ever imagined. The next morning, I woke up to silence. The candles had left a faint trace of smoke in the air, and the scent of rosemary still clung to the curtains. I stood in the kitchen, pouring myself coffee I didn't want to drink. The lemon cake sat untouched in the fridge. I didn't have the heart to throw it away. I wandered through the house in my robe, touching picture frames like they might speak. Elliot as a toddler, covered in spaghetti. Meadow on their wedding day, holding my hand, smiling like we were going to be real family. Back then I believed her. I opened the group chat again. Still no messages. No, sorry mom. No, we'll make it up to you. Just digital dust. They hadn't forgotten me. They'd erased me. Later that afternoon, I watered the hydrangeas out front. Ruth's favorite. She used to call every week to ask if they were blooming. Now she was sipping champagne on a ship somewhere, tagging photos with family first. When the mail came, it felt like a ritual. Ads, a credit card offer, a coupon for a funeral home. How fitting. I stood on the porch sorting envelopes while a neighbor walked by with her granddaughter. They waved. I smiled. They didn't know that yesterday had been my birthday. That night, I reheated some soup and sat in front of the television. The volume low. No appetite. No interest. Just static noise to drown out the louder silence in my chest. I scrolled through Facebook again. Another post. This time a video. The whole family dancing on the cruise deck. Elliot lifting Emma onto his shoulders while Meadow filmed. Ruth laughing in the background. The caption read, "When life gives you family, make memories." I stared at the screen until it blurred. This wasn't an accident. And I wasn't imagining things. They had decided, together, that I wasn't worth the invitation. That I'd become something they needed to step around, not bring along. I turned off the phone and sat in the dark. Not angry. Not yet. But something had shifted. Not just in how I saw them, but in how I saw myself. It wasn't the first time they'd forgotten me. 3 years ago at Tommy's 4th birthday party, I showed up with a hand-wrapped gift and a balloon tied to my wrist. Meadow met me at the door, her face tight with surprise. "Oh, Loretta," she said, "didn't Elliot tell you? We had to move the party to tomorrow." But I could hear children laughing inside. I saw Spider-Man decorations through the window. When I called Elliot that night, he sounded confused. "No, Mom, the party was today." Meadow must have gotten the days mixed up. Right. And the year Emma started kindergarten, I'd asked 3 times what time they were dropping her off so I could be there with my camera. Meadow had replied, "Oh, we're going super early, like 7 a.m., probably too early for you." I showed up at 7 anyway. The teacher told me Emma had arrived at 8:30 regular time. Last Christmas, Meadow called me 2 days before with that syrupy voice she used when delivering bad news. "Loretta, I hate to say this, but Elliot's been really stressed. He asked if we could keep Christmas dinner small. Just immediate family." I spent Christmas Eve alone, eating reheated lasagna and watching old movies. A week later, Ruth mentioned they'd hosted a huge dinner party. She'd seen the photos online. Neighbors, co-workers, even Elliot's college friends. 20 people. Everyone but me. Each time I'd convinced myself it was bad timing, miscommunication, nothing intentional. That Meadow was just overwhelmed. That Elliot would have said something if he knew. But now I saw it clearly. This wasn't disorganization. It was design. They'd been phasing me out slowly, politely for years. The missed calls. The last-minute changes. The vague explanations that never quite added up. And I had let it happen. Because I didn't want to believe the truth. But that blue dress still hung on the back of my bedroom door, the one I'd worn just days ago, thinking I'd be surrounded by laughter, candles, family. Instead, I was surrounded by silence. And now, finally, I could hear what it had been trying to tell me all along. It was always Meadow. She never raised her voice. Never said anything outright cruel. He didn't have to. She operated in the silences, between the words, in the moments people overlooked. First, I thought she was just busy. A young mom, a working wife. But looking back, every little shift had her fingerprints. Like the time she started managing the family calendar. "Less confusion," she said. "I'll keep everything in one place." After that, I stopped getting invites to school events. To birthdays. She'd always say, "Oh, didn't Elliot tell you? It was rescheduled." Or, "We thought it might be too far for you, Loretta." Then there were the holidays. I used to host Thanksgiving. It was tradition. Turkey, my cranberry sauce, the big table. But one year Meadow suggested something different. "Let's alternate. 1 year with us, 1 with her family," she said. "It's only fair." Fair. Except somehow her turn kept landing on every major holiday. And when it was supposedly my year, she'd book a last-minute getaway or claim they were keeping it low-key. Till I smiled. I sent gifts. I mailed cards with little notes hoping to stay connected. But the replies got shorter. Then stopped altogether. Even Ruth had changed. She used to call twice a week. We'd laugh about old times, complain about our joints. But once Meadow got close to her, inviting her to brunches, yoga classes, those charity auctions, I started hearing from Ruth less and less. "She's so organized," Ruth said once. "Really holds the family together." No, I thought. She's holding it together without me in it. It wasn't just forgetfulness. It wasn't just busy lives. It was strategy. Meadow was building something. A version of our family where I didn't belong. Where she could be the matriarch, the voice everyone listened to. And she was winning. I thought of that cruise photo again, her in white, dead center, holding Emma like a trophy. Elliot beside her, smiling like he didn't even notice who was missing. Maybe he didn't. Or maybe he noticed and didn't care. Either way, the message was clear. I had been edited out of my own story. I used to think Harold would never let this happen. He was the buffer. The bridge. The reason everyone came home for dinner. Harold had a way of holding things together without making it obvious. He didn't say much, but when he did, people listened. Especially Elliot. When Harold died, something shifted. First it was subtle. Fewer calls. Shorter visits. Excuses that sounded reasonable. But now, sitting alone at the kitchen table where Harold and I once had morning coffee, I realized his absence wasn't just emotional. It left space. Space Meadow filled quickly. She never challenged Harold. She waited, smiled, watched. And when he was gone, she moved in like smoke under a door. I remember the day we bought this house. Harold said, "It's a little much for just us, but one day it'll be filled with grandkids." He built the back deck himself. Stained it every spring. Said it would last long after we were gone. I still sit out there sometimes. Pretend he's across from me with his paper, humming that old Sinatra tune under his breath. He always said, "Loretta, no matter what happens, this family's yours to protect." So I did. I took care of his mother when she was sick. I left work to raise Elliot. I gave up trips, hobbies, things I loved, so we could put Elliot through school so Meadow could find her footing after having kids. I played peacemaker when Elliot and Ruth fought. I wrote birthday cards for everyone, even the in-laws. I remembered food allergies, anniversaries, the stories behind every ornament on the Christmas tree. I never asked for recognition. I only asked to be included. No. Now I was just the woman who sent too many texts, who showed up early, who clung to old traditions. But Harold knew better. Before he passed, he wrote me a letter. I keep it in my nightstand. The ink's faded, but I know every word by heart. "Loretta," he wrote, "you were the spine of this family. Don't ever let them make you feel like a footnote." I folded the letter again and placed it back in the drawer. Maybe it was time to stop waiting for a seat at their table and start building my own. I didn't confront anyone. No dramatic phone calls. No messages asking why. No angry letters. I just stopped. I stopped sending reminders for birthdays. Stopped commenting on their posts. Stopped asking when the kids' recitals were or what time Sunday dinner might be. The silence I once feared became something else. Something I could control. I started my mornings the same but slower. Coffee on the porch Harold built. A crossword puzzle I never finished. Birdsong instead of notifications. I let the garden go a little wild. Let it breathe. Meadow used to say the flower beds looked too curated, like I was trying too hard. Now they bloomed without permission. One day I took down the framed photo in the hallway, the one of Elliot and Meadow on their wedding day. I replaced it with an old snapshot of Harold and me at Coney Island. Wind in our hair, salt on our skin, both of us laughing like we hadn't yet learned what grief felt like. I didn't delete anyone from my life. I just stopped waiting for them to show up in it. I found my old sewing machine in the garage, dusted it off and started piecing together a quilt from Harold's shirts. I didn't plan to give it to anyone. It was for me. It felt strange at first, this quiet withdrawal. Like pulling your hand back from a stove you didn't realize was still hot. But then it felt good. There was no more pretending. No more bending myself into someone more acceptable. More manageable. More invisible. They hadn't called since the cruise. Not Elliot. Not Ruth. Not even a card in the mail. Meadow posted pictures of the kids' first day of school. Matching backpacks, big grins, bright colors. I didn't comment. And no one noticed. That used to hurt. Now it told me everything I needed to know. Let them believe I was fading. Let them think I'd given up. What they didn't know, what they never saw coming, was that I wasn't retreating. I was regrouping. It happened at the grocery store. I was in the baking aisle comparing 2 bags of flour, when I heard the unmistakable tone behind me. Light, sweet, just a little too loud. "Loretta, well, didn't expect to see you here." I turned. Meadow stood there in heels too high for errands, holding a designer tote like it was part of a performance. "Meadow," I nodded. She leaned in for a hug. I stepped back. Her smile faltered just for a second. "I've been meaning to call," she said, adjusting her purse strap. "Things have just been crazy lately. The cruise was sort of last minute." "Of course," I said. "You all looked very coordinated for a spontaneous trip." That landed. I saw it in the way her eyes blinked faster than usual. "Well, the kids needed a break," she replied, voice lighter now. "You know how it is." I didn't answer. Instead, I looked down into her cart. Party plates, streamers, a boxed cake. Planning something? I asked. Emma's birthday, she said quickly. Just something small. Family only. There was. I let the silence stretch just long enough to turn the air heavy. I wasn't sure if you'd want to come, she added. With everything lately. Everything. I tilted my head. You mean the part where I set a table for 8 and watched it stay empty? Or the part where your vacation photos showed up before an explanation? Her face flushed. A crack in the perfect glaze. Elliot was supposed to, she started. Elliot didn't, I said. Come, even. Pause. Then she smiled again, but it didn't reach her eyes. You know, you've always taken things a little personally. And you've always preferred things tidy, I said. No mess. No confrontation. Just quiet disappearances. She blinked. I won't be coming to the party, I added. But thank you for finally letting me know there is one. She opened her mouth, then closed it. I pushed my cart past her slowly. You should check the expiration on that boxed cake, I said over my shoulder. Sometimes things look fine on the outside, but they're already going stale. The envelope came 2 days later. No return address. Just my name in thick blue ink written with the kind of pen only lawyers still use. Inside was a note and a copy of Harold's updated will. I recognized the handwriting immediately. Samuel Griggs, Harold's old friend and attorney. I hadn't spoken to him since the funeral. Loretta, I thought you should have this. I found it while organizing archived files. It seems timely. Beneath it, a post-it with 3 words in his square, careful print. She never saw this. I sat at the kitchen table, sunlight crawling across the hardwood, and began to read. Harold had made changes 6 months before he died. Quietly. Thoroughly. Everything. This house, the savings, the cabin upstate had been placed in a trust. In my name. More importantly, the trust included stipulations. Conditions. Protections. If I were ever declared unfit, if I were pressured to sign anything under distress, if anyone attempted to move, sell, or seize assets in my absence, it would trigger automatic legal review. And reversal. It was all there. In writing. In Harold's words. He'd seen something coming. He always did. I folded the papers slowly, my hands steadier than I expected. I placed them in a manila envelope, then slid it under a stack of old magazines in the hall closet. I wasn't ready to use them. Not yet. But knowing changed everything. That evening I called Samuel. He picked up on the second ring. Loretta, he said like he'd been waiting. You could. I will be, I replied. We spoke for 12 minutes. Nothing aggressive. No lawsuits. No ultimatums. Just facts. When I hung up, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt protected. For the first time in a long while, I wasn't on the outside looking in. I had something they didn't expect. Memory. Documentation. A man who still honored his word even from the grave. And now I wasn't just grieving. I was preparing. I didn't rush. Power's funny like that. Once you realize you still have it, the urgency fades. You don't need to shout. You wait. I started with the bank. Not to make withdrawals, just to update a few things. A quiet visit. A short conversation with a woman named Denise who wore reading glasses on a chain and called me ma'am with real warmth. We added a layer of verification to the trust. Just in case. Then I called the utilities. Had the account statements rerouted to my email instead of the house folder Meadow used to help organize. I didn't need her managing anything anymore. Next I took inventory. Not of stuff, but of stories. Documents. Old letters Harold had written. Photos from birthdays I actually attended. Notes I'd tucked into Elliot's lunchboxes back in school. Proof of a life built, not borrowed. I gathered it all one drawer at a time. I wasn't preparing for battle. I was preparing for clarity. Meadow liked control because it made her feel safe. Predictable schedules. Pre-approved guest lists. Narratives she could sculpt. But I had something she didn't. I had nothing left to lose. One afternoon I sat in the den with a legal pad. Drew a line down the center. Left side, things they took. Right side, things I still had. On the left, Christmas mornings. Emma's recital. Sunday dinners. Laughter from rooms I wasn't invited into. On the right, the deed. The trust. The letter from Harold. My name on every signature line that mattered. The imbalance made me smile. The final step was subtle. I RSVP'd to a family event. Not Meadows. Ruth's youngest was graduating. The invitation had arrived late. Likely an oversight or maybe a peace offering. Either way I said yes. And I planned to attend. Not to cause a scene. Not to make speeches or demand apologies. I'd go in a navy dress, pearls, and that soft smile Harold used to call dangerous. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is show up. I arrived 5 minutes early. Not too early. Just enough to choose my seat. It was a modest auditorium. Folding chairs, stage lights a little too harsh. Someone testing a microphone in the background. I spotted Ruth across the room, surprised. Mouth opened slightly before she waved like she wasn't sure if she should. I waved back. I wore navy. Pearls. Low heels. Nothing dramatic. Just unmistakably present. When Meadow walked in, her eyes landed on me immediately. She paused. Only for a second. But that second said everything. Elliot followed behind, one hand on Emma's shoulder. He didn't see me at first. But Meadow leaned in, whispering something. His head turned. His jaw tightened. No one approached. I wasn't expecting them to. During the ceremony I clapped at all the right moments. Smiled. Even wiped a tear when Ruth's boy crossed the stage in that oversized cap, clutching his diploma like it might fly away. Afterward there was punch and cookies in the multipurpose room. Small talk. Photos. I didn't seek anyone out. I didn't need to. They came to me. First Ruth. Then her husband. Then a cousin I hadn't seen in years who said, "We didn't know you'd be here. It's been too long." And finally Elliot. He walked over slowly, hands in his pockets like he was 12 again, about to confess breaking a window. "Mom," he said, not quite meeting my eyes. "Elliot. I didn't know you were invited." "I wasn't." He nodded. "Look down. You look good." "Trust lawyers and soft lighting," I said. He gave a nervous laugh. Meadow hovered nearby, stiff, arms crossed like armor. I didn't acknowledge her. Instead I reached into my purse and pulled out a small envelope. "Next week," I said to Elliot, handing it to him. "A few of Harold's documents. I thought you should see them." His hand hesitated before taking it. "Is everything okay?" "Everything's exactly where Harold left it," I said. "And now so am I." Then I turned and walked away. Not out of anger. Out of choice. The ripple started small. A few days after the ceremony, I noticed Meadows' posts shift. Less polished. Fewer filters. No captions like "blessed beyond measure." Just a picture of the kids looking off camera with no hashtags. Then Ruth called. We hadn't spoken in months. "I ran into Sam Griggs at the market," she began, her voice uncertain. "He asked how you were doing. Said he'd seen you recently." I let the silence sit. She continued. "He mentioned the trust. I didn't know Harold had updated anything." "Most people didn't," I said. Ruth exhaled. "Loretta, I'm sorry. I really thought they kept you in the loop." "They didn't," I replied. "And you didn't ask." She didn't argue. Instead she asked if I'd like to come over for coffee sometime. Later that week Elliot texted. Just one line. "Can we talk?" I waited 2 days before replying. "About what?" He never answered. But I knew what was happening. The envelope had done its job. It wasn't just papers. It was a reminder that I was still here. That Harold hadn't left me behind. That Meadow didn't hold all the cards. Now they were scrambling. Ruth started calling regularly again, each conversation a little longer than the last. She'd mention things like how the family's been pulled in too many directions, or how Meadow tends to take charge. Subtle shifts. Even the grandkids began to reappear. Little drawings in the mail, a voicemail from Emma saying she missed my cookies. But it wasn't guilt. It was fear. Because control built on silence crumbles fast when someone speaks. And though I hadn't raised my voice, I had made noise. Meadow knew it. I saw it in the way she stopped showing up to community events, the way her tone turned brittle when people mentioned my name. She was no longer the curator of the family story. I was writing again. One word at a time. Not to win them back. Just to take my place fully before anyone tried to erase it again. I never raised my voice. I never called a family meeting or sent out some grand announcement. I simply reclaimed my place quietly, fully. And when I had it, I chose to step back on my own terms. It started with the house. Not out of spite, not out of anger, just clarity. I met with Sam again. We reviewed the trust, the protections Harold had placed like breadcrumbs through the years. Then I called a realtor. He was kind, efficient, surprised that I wasn't downsizing out of necessity. No, I told her. I'm just ready to go where I'm wanted, not where I'm tolerated. The house sold in 3 weeks. I didn't invite anyone to the final walkthrough. I took one last morning on the porch, wrapped in Harold's old cardigan, coffee in hand, watching the wind roll through the garden he built. Then I locked the door behind me. No ceremony. No tears. I left a letter for Elliot in the mailbox. Short. Honest. You don't have to explain anything to me anymore. And I won't ask you to. Just know that when you're ready to remember what love without conditions looks like, I'll still be that woman. Somewhere quieter. I bought a small cottage 2 towns over. Near the lake. Quiet street. Friendly neighbors. Nobody there calls me too much. They just call me Loretta. I joined a quilting group. Took a cooking class for fun. Not to feed anyone, just to try new things. I even got a dog. His name's Franklin. He's terrible at fetch and excellent at listening. I get postcards from Ruth now. A few awkward texts from Elliot that I don't always answer. And last week, Emma sent me a drawing of a house by the water with a lady and a dog in the yard. She labeled it, Grandma's New Castle. Sometimes healing doesn't look like reunion. Sometimes it looks like peace. And sometimes the most powerful revenge is no revenge at all. Just a woman, 65, sipping her coffee beside a dog who doesn't ask for anything but presence. And for the first time in years, I'm not waiting to be invited. I am home.